All right, so today we're going to cover some arrays, but I first wanted to talk about how to clean up the data that the users give us a little bit, because anytime you allow users to type something into a text box, you're kind of open to attacks and all kinds of stuff. Now, we'll talk about SQL injection later when we get to SQL, but for now we want to kind of clean the data that comes from the user's browser. We want to kind of clean that a little bit. So there are different ways to do that. Let's just say, let's print out some of this stuff like Dave. Your first name is, and I'm going to put quotes around this first name so you'll see what I'm talking about. So in my Contact Us page that we've been working on, I'm going to print out their name that they enter in the form. Once this comes up, and I'm putting quotes around it so you'll see some extra data that I'm going to type into the form and see what we need to do with that. All right, so it finally came back up. You see I have the two quotes with nothing in it. Let's enter my name, Dave. Ask my question. And now Dave is inside the two quotes. But what happens if the guy types a bunch of spaces like this and submits his question? Well, they are actually in that data. There are spaces in here. It adds spaces because the one thing that most likely Chrome is doing is stripping out successive spaces. But let's do something like this. Yeah, so they're compressing subsequent spaces, but that's not really what I sent the form. And people can not use Chrome, for instance, and it's going to put a bunch of spaces before that. Let's see what Firefox does with that. Should do IE, yeah. That's guaranteed to fail. Yeah. So let's post Dave here. It compressed it also, which is interesting. I haven't seen that before. So anyway, it is adding a space. You can see that it is adding at least a single space, and we want to get rid of that data. We don't want to store spaces around our names in our database if we ever were to do that, right? We want to clean that data a little bit. And in PHP, there is a method called trim. So I can look up trim, and it says strip white space from the beginning and end of a string. Hey, that sounds like exactly what I need, right? So how do I call that? Well, we look down here. It returns a string, and it takes a string as a parameter. So that seems pretty easy to do. Let's go up. Where am I first creating my first name string here? I'm getting the data from the post array here. So how would I call that trim method on this data value here? Go back and look at I'm going to call trim with a string as a parameter as input, and it's going to return me a string. So how am I going to do that? So, very good. So I'm going to say trim and put parentheses before and after this. So this entire value is coming from the post array. That is a string data type. So I'm passing that into my trim method. My trim method is returning a string with it modified and stuffing it into my first name variable, which is then what I'm going to print. And bada boom, bada bing. If I ask a question, it now took out that one space that it had sent for me. Isn't that nice? And now it's no longer here either. Atom in and question, and it takes it out, and the form now has been cleaned up a little bit. And this data now is valuable. I can actually put this into my database if I wanted to. Yep, you'd probably want to do that with most things. You probably wouldn't want to do it to a checkbox. That doesn't do much for you. But for any text, free-form text data, text inputs, phone numbers, things like that, you want to make sure that that's the case. Say again?
You wouldn't want to use any question text.
Yeah, you could, because what would happen if they entered a bunch of spaces? Do we want to store those in our database? No.
Saying it doesn't strip out the ones that are between the letters. It's still each one there, so you're not going to end up with,
See, in this case, it didn't trim them at all. So Firefox didn't trim. So these are all still there. See those? So if I want to trim those, let's trim my question. Yeah, it only deals with leading and trailing white space. I think those are safe to do that. Let's post that again. Oh, wrong one. Post it again. And now my question has been trimmed down. So I've gotten rid of those extraneous white spaces.
Now it shows that it had all those extra white spaces. Will it keep the white spaces in between, or will it also trim that down to one?
It will keep.
Let's say you put like 30 white spaces in there, a random letter. Will it keep that, or will it?
It. Well, see, that's a function of the browser, I believe. I'm going to have to research that. Compressing spaces between things, I don't like that. I don't remember that ever happening before, so I'm going to have to play with that. It does leave them. Well, it looks like it did here, but the trim is only going to look at. You can think of a regular expression. Those that have done that, look for a white space until I get any character and delete that, and then from the end of the string, I want to look backwards for white space until I get something. So that's all that's really doing. Yeah, you can write your own code, your own custom stuff here, but these are the built-in ones. So there's some other methods. Where's my PHP thing here? There's some other methods that are useful. One is called strip slashes, and it unquotes a string if you want to unquote something. So in this case, it takes away a slash from a quote here. So it'll strip any slashes. Sometimes those are detrimental to strings. Another one is called HTML special characters. And they all work the same. HTML special chars, not characters. So this is takes special characters and converts them to HTML entities. So if you have an ampersand in there, it's going to convert it to ampersand amp. Double quotes becomes ampersand quote, single quote, etc. LT. So if they put in LT in my question here, if I put something like this is a test, that's going to come through fine. If I could actually put HTML around this, but I'm not displaying it right now, so it's not going to make any difference. But if I want to change that, that could be potentially dangerous to allow people to put HTML in the text boxes, because you're going to store that in your database and you're going to display that, and you can do a lot of harm with some HTML. So strip slashes will fix that. I mean, HTML special chars. So we can do that as well. So first I might want to trim it. What does trim return? String. So I can just nest these all together. HTML special chars, which takes the whatever trim sent me and converts it and sends me back another string. So let's do that on this one as well. That's a programming style. I like it because it sets apart the methods here. Yeah, that's my style. That's the best style. Yeah, you could, but maybe you're a text site that wants to post code. So that might not, it's not always going to be the case that you can just do that. So where was my HTML example? Let's post this one. Yes. Yeah, you let some exceptions through maybe. So why is this? So let's look at the source. Here it is. So you can't really see it in the browser, but it converted to ampersand, LT, etc. All right. And another one is, that's it. Those are the three main ones. There are some others, but those are the three main ones that help kind of clean up people trying to post HTML or to load up your database with blank spaces, etc. Strip slashes. I just didn't add it to mine. Yep. Yep. Through JavaScript. I could post JavaScript that would let it redirect. Yep. All right. So that's a little more about forms. Now I wanted to talk about arrays. And arrays are useful, almost required to get a lot of things done. So an array is very similar to other languages like Ruby and C#, except that PHP is a little bit more like Ruby. We can have different types of data in a single array. It doesn't care what I have in it. So I can create an array. Anybody not know what an array is to start with? Legitimately not know what an array is. All right, so I won't go through that. But an array is a way to store multiple pieces of data in a single object. All right, and it's extensible. I can add more cells to that, and I like to think of it like an Excel spreadsheet, a single column of an Excel spreadsheet. So an array we can define with a variable name, and we can use a method called array to start to populate our array. So I can say Dave Jones 42, etc. Well, to initialize or instantiate the array, I'm using a method, and that fills in my array for me. Now, if I want to look at the value in an array, I would use the brackets. So I can say echo out the value of the position A sub 1. What is that value going to be? Jones, why? That's the second position.
0.
Right? We start from 0 again. So let's go to arrays. And so it printed out Jones. A sub 1, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. I can echo out A sub 2 times 2.
How would you actually look at the code that makes it functional?
You'd have to go download the source code. That's all written in C. Yep, no. All right, so let's reload this. All right, so I printed out Jones, A sub 1. It took A sub 2, multiplied it by 2, and printed out 84 right next to it. Right. All right. So I can have any types of data in my array, and I can print them out. I can store something new into a value. I could say A sub 0 instead of Dave. I want to store Joe, and I can print out A sub 0. And reload that page, and I get Joe. So this is storing something, some data value into a cell, looking at the value, indexing the array, we call it, indexing the array, looking at the cell value itself, and I can print them out. I can do anything I want. That's just a variable. I like to call them a variable. I can have multiple things in here. And the number doesn't have to be a number. This can be a variable as well. I could say is count equals 3, 2. And I can say print out A sub count. So a variable, what is $count? It has the value 2, so this is the same thing as saying A sub 2. So I get 42. All right, any questions on that? It's a simple array. Now, how would I go through this array? Let's use a while loop. You guys love while loops, right? While something is true, and let's say count. Now, how do I know when to stop? If I'm going to list everything in the array, how would I know when to stop? I need what? I need an indexer, right? My count. I'm going to say I'm going to start at 0. But then, what is my conditional statement here?
While it is equal to or less than array.count or whatever, however much is in the array.
All right, so we need to find a method that tells me how long an array is. All right, so let's go look at the PHP. Yes, we'll get to that. Relax. All right, so here's our arrays. There are some methods that let me do a length. Where is it? All right, it's not on that page. Just trying to find it in the thing here for you. All right, so it's called count. Count. This is all method. Remember, PHP is really not object oriented unless you write your own classes and things. So this count is a procedure or a method that takes a value. So I have to call count parentheses the name of my array, and that returns an integer. So I'm going to call the method count, which is different than my index. All right, then we use our curly braces. Had to remember my languages here for a minute. Then I need to, what I always do is I write my modification of the Boolean expression immediately. I'm going to say count plus plus, because I can. That's the same thing as count equals count plus 1, or count plus equals 1. And I'm going to say, let's echo out the value of A at what position? Subcount, right? So I can use that variable inside of that, and that variable is going to change. So every time I'm looking at a different cell and I'm printing it out to the page. So that should print out my array like this on its own line. But I'm going to add a break tag so I can see it on its own line. All right, so let's go look at my site. This is the end. The curly braces, we use curly braces in PHP instead of do end in Ruby. So that's the same thing. And that's the way JavaScript does it, C# does it, etc. So that's a block of code. So it's going to execute all these lines of code inside this while loop. And let's echo out some more breaks here. Don't you love these break tags? Yep, I'm sure you did. All right, so here's my array. Now, why does it say Joe Jones 42 when I have Dave Jones 42 here? Because I changed the value, right? So I'm printing out the array at this current point in time. All right, everybody see that so far? All right. Joe Jones. All right, so let's move on. There are other ways of looping through an array to print these out. The most common is a for each loop. And I give my my value. Let's go look at that up in the PHP code. I want you guys to get used to using this. So for each. And let's look at some code here. So here's my array, like I have already. For each, and I use the array as the first element, as a value as the second element. So that's it already, PHP Storm already filled this out for me. So I'm going to put in, what would I put in as the first argument here then? The array name, $A, and then some internal value that I can use to print out. This will be the actual contents. I'm going to call it item. And then I can just echo out item along with a break tag. All right, so let's put a bad horizontal rule in here. Those are really bad. To replace that, you have to write like 3 or 4 lines of CSS, which is stupid in my opinion, but that's my opinion. Yeah, it's crazy. So I like the HR tag, even though it's deprecated. So this does the same thing. I print out all the values in the array, but it's substantially quicker, right? I don't have to worry about my count variable. I don't have to worry about indexing my array, setting up my initial condition, anything like that. This says, or even making sure I'm less than or equal to count of the array. What this does is, every time through this loop, it fills in the variable item with the next cell value. So the first time through the loop, it's going to have Joe is going to be stuffed into item. Second time loop, it's going to have Jones. Third time through the loop, it's going to have the number 42. Yeah. They're identical in what they do, but the for each is a little nicer. They output exactly the same. So taking this for each loop, how might I put this into a select box? That sounds like something useful. All right, something about options. So what does a select box look like? It looks like select, name equals what? whatever, name. Then I have some options, right? These are my option tags inside of this. And this might have the word Joe, and I close my option. And then I might have an option Jones and close my option. And I would have my option 42 and close my option. And then what do I have to do at the end? Just close my select tag. And that's what I want to print out. All right, so what changes in here? What contributes to this being put into a loop? Where the options are. These are the only things that repeat. So I have to echo out this first and echo out this last, and then echo out my options as I build them. As I come across them in the array, I'm going to echo out a line that looks like this. So instead of just echoing out the item, I'm going to echo out my open option. Cut that out. I'm going to put in my item, and I'm going to put in my close option. And that will fill in whatever the item is as it's going through the array into this string. Then I need to echo out my select tag. And I need to echo out my closing select tag. Come on. All right, so this code, or without the HR, this code here should print out this HTML code. Let's see if it does it. Look at that. Pull down box. Is that sweet? So now if I wanted to add some stuff to my array, I could put Joe back here and add Cassie and Russell and reload my page. And now my text box is just longer. I mean, my select box is longer. So I didn't have to do anything to my loop here. I just changed my array values, and everything worked nicely. Isn't that cool? So let's look at it in...
So the comments in this actually don't work as, or the comment, not comments. The things that look like comments are actually things that are printed to the screen rather than...
No, this is just a PHP comment. This does not get sent to the screen at all. Right here.
Oh, okay. Okay, I get it.
Right, so let's look at the source of this page. And you'll see here's my select, name equals name, option Joe, etc. 42, it says all on one line though. But that's the code in it. That's fine. How would I make it look like it's all formatted correctly in the HTML? Anybody know? No, there's not. No HTML save. Break tags are going to actually put a break. That's an HTML entity. We need to use something that the browsers ignore, but that the source still has in it.
Oh, like a push or a primitive?
No?
Dave,
Yep.
does PHP use associative arrays?
Yes. So we'll get into that probably tomorrow. So let's change my quotes here, and I'll show you the value just for grins. if I were to put this character in my code, what does a double quoted string do to that? Just like in Ruby and almost every other language, a double quoted string does what to a /n? Makes it a carriage return line feed. So I can put a carriage return at the end of my select name here, and I might put it at the end of every option and at the end of my closing select. So let's see what happens now if I look at the source code. Look at that. That's a little better, huh? So I can even put one at the beginning of my select statement. Make that even look a little nicer. And if I really want to be fancy, what could I put to make these indented? A /t is a tab, right? So /t before my option. Look at that. Is that sweet? So everything looks hunky-dory. Why does this print as a /n, though? Because I have single quotes. Very good. So I need to put double quotes around my last guy. And reload it, and there we are. Happy as clams. Isn't that wonderful? So that's if you really want your HTML to be nice and sweet looking. Not required, but when you're writing the code initially, I think it's really important to look at the code. When in doubt, go to the source, right? You've got to look and see what did PHP actually send out for me. And looking at the source, you need to do that a lot. Make sure you're looking at what this comes out to be, because the browser might be displaying it completely differently. All right? So any questions on that? This part here. Just this part here. All I did was echo out a select statement, and I don't even need a form to put a pull down. I mean, I can't really do anything with it, but it makes a pull down. If I use jQuery, I wouldn't need a form at all. I could just do a select box and some JavaScript and not even have a form. I can do all kinds of fun stuff. That's right. That's called foreshadowing. Very good. Very good. All right. One thing. Any questions on the arrays so far? Tomorrow we'll cover what I like to call associative arrays, which are more like a Ruby hash. A Ruby hash, almost identical to a Ruby hash actually, and JavaScript uses that same type of a concept of a key value pair in an array as an associative array. All right, so I wanted to talk about one more thing that I forgot to talk about yesterday that I don't want you to do in your HTML for tonight. There's an HTML5 tag that I forgot to mention, Kyle. I wrote it down. I didn't even mention it. In a HTML input tag, for instance, I can put a new attribute in here called required. Required equals required, which is a lot like checked equals checked. If I do that, let's go back to my Contact Us page, reload the page, and not have anything here. The browser itself comes up with these nice, please fill out this field. Isn't that amazing? The browser did that for me. I did nothing else except make this a required field. If I fill something in, it's going to allow me to post it.
So after we've got the homework done for this one, can we go back?
Yes, because it's a cool feature, but in reality, you're not sure that they're going to use Chrome. I think Firefox uses this too, so we can do this here. Let's see, I'm going to have to reload the page. So IE 13, I think, is promised for sure to have that in there. So this Firefox does it. Says please fill out this field. That's pretty cool. Automatically required for me. If I fill something in, it posts it. But again, I can hack this form and save it to my desktop, take out that required field, post it again, and if your back-end PHP process doesn't handle that, you're going to have blank names in your database. You have got to protect users from themselves. So an HTML required tag is fine if, in addition to that, you do the testing on the back end.
Well, the nice thing is that
it handles the errors nice. Yeah.
It doesn't hit that.
Right. It will never even see your error. Right. But you may not use that for tonight's assignment. May not. Yeah, let's try. Do I even have IE? Oh, darn it. I got IE on here. So let's see what IE has for us. I didn't even think it still existed.
Well, and then you watch Tom's ASP video, and you're like, back when the browser wars were still being fought before Internet Explorer had won. And
So,
I was like, why are we watching this?
so it did not do it. So I'm posting this without something in here, and it posted it. It was caught now by my PHP code. So you cannot use that just for fun. You can't rely on these things. Again, I can hack this form and take that data out and bypass your stuff. So that's really easy to do. So, and we're using what, IE 27 or something? IE 9, so it doesn't. I'm pretty sure by 13 they'll have it in there. So
10 is 8 exclusive, and it's HTML5 compatible.
yeah.
It has been funny in class when the presentation had said before the browser wars were won by IE, and the entire class like exploded.
All right, so there's that required. I just wanted to show that to you. I'll get there. Any questions on what we did with the arrays? Any other questions on any of this stuff?